The goal of feminist art was to influence cultural attitudes and transform stereotypes. This was suggested by Susan Lacey. I have chosen to explore a theoretical framework of 1970s feminist work to understand and explain visual practice and culture today. Throughout this presentation, I'll be analysing the work through the theoretical framework of formalism to analyse post-1970s feminist work. The reasons for choosing this framework in relation to feminism in the above quote is, in my opinion, like other art movements such as surrealism, it doesn't have a unique style. It's dressed in many different ways to perhaps capture other audiences, unlike one, in order to influence cultural attitudes more and therefore make a universal change to the world. Women in the past to male artists were always conveyed as the idealistic women figure that society has made them to be, and they're also portrayed in a sexualised manner. So in terms of a formalistic point of view, 1970s feminism artwork was most of the time playing up to that idea and also showing that they do have freedom and choice. A popular piece of work which has satire to the work in response to the freedom and choice women have and the portrayal of being sexualised because they are a woman is this piece of work by Barbara Kruger. One of the key features of the majority of her work is the use of the bold text in the foreground of the image. The main reason for doing so is to grab the eye of the viewer. These statements are short and are based on the views of a feminist in regards to political, gender and cultural issues. The use of the boldness is to show that women do have a voice and they should be heard, and for the viewer to not want to buy the piece of work, but instead her overall aim in all of her work was to sell an idea to the viewer and get them to perhaps change their opinion and views on the current topic. The red blocks with the white lettering, which contrasts hugely with the black and white image for this quote. Kruger's text addresses the viewer in much the same way advertisers sway the consumer to buy a product. This was suggested by consumption and contemporary art. This for the viewer to realise the extent of somewhat sadness women have to go through in regards to being equal to men. So in reference to the work of Kruger in Figure 1, the text is referring to the constant battle and struggle that women had in order to change society's views, and that it was different and harder than just changing normal political issues. But this particular piece of work was referring to the idea of abortion. Women's rights to choose what happens to our body is a fight on the outside as well as the inside. This in the image, as the photograph is divided in half, with the image of what was perceived at the time as a beautiful woman on the left, but on the right an inverted image. So in a formalistic view, the inverted part of the photograph does not have an emotional thought of hurt and pain. Through the use of the dark grey and white blending in, gives the impression of bruising and scars that women have emotionally, and it gives the viewer a strong sense of sadness, especially as the contrast of the two sides is so powerful you can see the clear difference, especially when it comes to the lip. As the inverted image shows the shadow under the lip, but it appears that it is swollen, so again resembles the idea of fighting and being left with scars emotionally and physically. But what Kruger has done that creates the strong sense of sadness in the image of the woman she has used. The eyes are making direct eye contact with the viewer. This is perhaps the reason why the image is so powerful, especially to the woman, is the woman's gaze is like a cry for help. This piece of her artwork is one of her most well-known and critical pieces of work, as her use of images found from the media and the use of text was to explore how powerful imagery can be to change viewers' points of view. However, with her work from a formalistic point of view, many others disagree with her methods. With the use of halving the page with the image positive and negative plays on the idea of good versus bad and black versus white. So stating the world is as simple as black and white. However, many do disagree with this, and there is a lot more to it. Also, the use of stereotyping women in society Kruger portrays as her message in her work has a lot of controversy as well. However, in relation to the stereotypical women, Kruger states, as long as the pictures remain powerful, living conventions within culture, I'll continue to use them and turn them around. In a formalistic point of view, unlike Kruger, who uses the text as the main attraction to draw the viewer in, Anita Steckel uses an extremely controversial and humorist way of showing the female body as a way to draw the audience in and to deliver the powerful message she wants to give. Figure 2 shows one of the images of the Giant Woman series. This image shows Steckel hanging from a building in New York whilst holding a paintbrush. In her wild and phallic ways of portraying a message, does, like Kruger, gives the immediate response of shock and horror from the viewer. The merging of the hair into the New York sky represents the idea of a woman should be part of the male domination and equal, as from this era, New York was seen as a male-dominated city, and the use of grayscale of the work of the female, the figure, and the male, the New York, gives the mood of gloominess and somewhat sadness of the world that women had to live in. By showing the male-dominated New York in this quite disturbing way, she was showing that she has power, however still stating the desire she had for men. This can be assumed by the fact that she is doing an extremely sexual pose, which many people assume they do it to attract others. However, she has added the humorous aspects of it as a naked woman swinging from the Empire State Building with a monster-like hand. The woman appears to be using the building like a pole, used in pole dancing. This type of humour created a lot of controversy, as with the vast majority of her work. This humour is one of the most used formal elements in many pieces of feminist artwork created post-1970s. Looking at another feminist artwork from the 1970s through the formalistic lens is this piece of work by Sandy Orgel. She created an installation piece of work titled The Linen Closet. This piece of work, through dissembling body parts of a mannequin, was signifying the idea of women always being at home, and that was their job. However, due to new circumstances in the art world, they were now beginning to come out of the closet. To show this, Orgel placed one leg out of the closet, resembling they are possibly halfway there in the art world / society in general, to be seen as more than a housewife, etc. The women were part of the furniture and nothing more. In a way, the former elements of this piece of work are quite disturbing to the viewer. The shelves have been placed through 3 parts of the mannequin's body, through the neck, the chest, and the lower stomach. The facts alone is just going through the neck as an element creates a thought of pain, and that can resemble what the woman's going through. In comparison to Kruger's work, that uses text to target the audience, Orgel seems to be using a different technique of perhaps physical pain and atmosphere surrounding the installation to capture the viewer's attention. But then again, with Kruger's work, especially Your Body is Like a Battlefield, the woman's eyes are staring directly at the viewer for a cry for help, unlike Orgel's work, which is an installation piece, which seems to have the face and eyes looking away from the viewer. This formal element could resemble the idea of feeling ashamed of how women used to be viewed as. Women artists during this time had critics saying that as they are female artists, they all have similar styles. However, unlike the 2 pieces of art that I've analysed, so Kruger's and Steckel's, from a formalistic view, this piece is an installation piece that before the time it was created, in 1972, it was a step in the right direction for women, as before they had never created such controversial installation pieces, even just installation pieces alone. Looking at another installation piece through the formalism lens that was created after the Women House project, in which the Orgel's installation piece was part of, still continues to use the same formalistic elements, such as using items that create shock and horror amongst society. Unlike the other pieces of work I have discussed, this work by Tracy Emin in 1998 expresses herself through her work, which is about her own confessions that she has done as a woman, which makes Emin create a sense of connection with the viewer. Rather than using the stereotypical notion that women in society are perfect and are just items for the men to use and nothing more, Emin does the opposite and shows exactly what many women are like, rather than just stating what they are perceived as, which Kruger and Steckel have done.